How's it going?
Doing good. How are you?
Doing good. I was a little bit panicked right when I saw the password. I was like, oh,
Oh, that's funny. I actually didn't have to enter it, so I don't know what the deal
mm,
was on that. But anyway, it's all good.
for sure. Let me go ahead and pull up my PowerPoint. Um, Give me one brief second. Share screen. There it is. Okay.
Yeah.
You're able to
Okay.
see that, right?
Yep, I can see it.
Alrighty. So yeah, this is kind of interesting with the whole pandemic going on and then switching from in person to this. So um yeah, this is my project since I got everything kind of completed way before the timeline. So I'm glad I was able to still do this. I actually had most of the PowerPoint already ready,
Wow.
but I was like, I had most of the notes that I wanted to put in for my group. Um, it was just once I found out this was going to be switched into like my own thing, I kind of designed it myself. So
Uh-huh.
yeah. So we'll go right into it. So this is Peas Academy, is a high school designed for teens who are recovering from their drug addiction. This school has a relatively the same courses that high schools offer, like math, science, history, and English. Um, they don't have like outside classes like Spanish. They don't have enough teachers or enough classrooms, I should say, to really um, offer those kind of courses to adolescents who are dealing with their drug addiction. Every Monday morning they host a meeting at 10:30, and it's for a gathering. It's where the staff and students go around and they talk about their sobriety date, what is their daily struggles, what is going on in their life that is positive, and what is a negative. Which I find, is really amusing because myself, I went to that school, so I have personal experience from going there. What my volunteer time at Peas Academy was education mainly. I helped out with math specifically, so the students who were struggling with math was getting help from me because they have a math teacher, but the person just recently got hired, so they're going through training at the time. So I was just helping out. Sobriety was a big thing too. I was involved with one of the school counselors there that is a drug addiction counselor. He doesn't teach any classes. He does like a little gathering, holds his own room where people can just vent to him. And I'll sit in there with him and his name's Rufus. He'll just let the students talk and then he'll give his insight and people really utilize him in the classroom. He builds this relationship that is strong, um, where students can feel comfortable at by talking to him, and it's not like students are going to hold back. I mean, if there's like really strong things, he'll kind of nitpick at it, but if the student's like, I don't want to go there, he'll stop. So he'll let me sit in the meetings, and the students didn't have problems either with letting me sit in. So I got a chance to kind of give my insight on how to get past certain situations that was difficult, because when you're in the beginning of uh, your sobriety stage, it's not, reality starting to click. Like you're experiencing different feelings and different emotions that comes in your body that is not entirely accept it at once. Like you're not going to accept certain things that happen because you for a drug addict you'd want to forget those feelings if that was one of the things that you were afraid of or to talk about. So supporting the students was definitely a main thing. Just being there and teaching, educating again was um, teach as I can do for myself, not only for math but my sobriety. How myself, I've been 6 years clean. How has my life changed completely from being at that school to where I'm at now in my life. Um, some positives and negatives. Definitely some positives was just supporting, educating, and listening. Being a role model was a huge thing. You know, everyone kind of looked at me as like, man, you work at a bank, you've got 6 years under your belt, you're doing great in life. You know, you've owned a house, you've done this, you moved out of the state, moved to Florida. They kind of, you know, they knew my life pretty well the whole time I was there. So um, some negatives, you know, high school is filled with drama. That's not my thing. I think that was probably the most difficult thing being there was just a lot of high school drama. Some backlash from the students. I got some things that weren't good comments. There was a comment said that I did not really like at all, and it just kind of like it didn't hurt, but it just like the fact that someone would say that to me about my own recovery process, it kind of, you know, it stuns you. You don't expect that.
Yeah.
Um, and students, you know, wanting me to complete their assignments was another thing. You know, they kind of just handed because they for their math class they have to use computers. So the student just kind of said, "Here's my computer, finish my assignment for me, please." Which I'm like, yeah, no, you're not learning the material then. Like you're not taking it in seriously. And so I mean, another positive that I really think about is I had a couple students who actually they wanted to learn, so we actually took a whiteboard in the class and like we drew out the math equation. So it was just kind of fun teaching step by step to them how to really solve the equation. It wasn't just like boom, there's a calculator, there's the answer, and that's it. It was like for most of the time there was students who actually took math pretty seriously and wanted to learn when I was there. So those the social issues that Peace Academy is trying to accomplish, um, I would say is I want to move this screen because it's yes, there it is. Because it's blocking off like some of the words for me. Social issues that Peace Academy is trying to accomplish is how other high schools look at these students as failures, not offering better education or guidance. And when I say that, I would say like, you know, teachers kind of like know students specifically, you know, their past, where they sat in the class, you know, how their mood is. They kind of, you know, they see all that. You know, I would say probably for yourself that you see that as well for some of your students, like, hey, this student might do this or might do that. We don't know if they're going to be great or not great, but after a certain time frame, then the habits start to become tendencies, and that happens. So some high school students kind of just feel like they're let down by their teachers. They want to get help, but they don't ask, or they just assume that the teacher doesn't want to help them, not necessarily going and asking.
Mhm.
Peace Academy offers help to students who are battling a drug addiction. So, kind of really taking these people who have addiction problems and taking them and putting them in a recovery school so that they're not around the public with drugs and everything else that's around them. The school wants people to succeed in their life by being sober, going to meetings. They encourage meetings and also having a sponsor. So, um, if you know what meetings are, NAAA, which is
Mhm.
Narcotic Anonymous, Alcohol Anonymous, they gather for about an hour or so, and you know they chat about their addiction, how to recover, what's going good. Same thing, basically what's happening in the school. A sponsor is someone just who helps, who's a second level of support to be there for anything struggles, emotional problems that's going on. Um, I used to have a sponsor. I don't have a sponsor now just because um, I don't necessarily want one. I felt like there was a lot of problems with my past sponsors that I've used to have, so I personally don't have one.
Okay.
Yeah. I put one of my facts on on the screen just because I thought it kind of connected. The National Survey of Adolescents age 12 through 17 found that drugs and alcohol and nicotine are highly prevalent and accessible in teens' lives, particularly as they enter high school, just as to capture, if they're in a public face school and they're still addicted to drugs, no matter what, they're going to try or at least see it. And that's going to trigger someone, especially that someone in their like first days or few months of recovery. I would say it's you really want to take your life out of that picture for a certain time frame where you're able to understand, you're able to have a clear mind, your dopamine's levels are really low so that you're not having those urges, those triggers to come back to that old drug life. Alrighty, connections with our class. I would say Rios's book, how the students are treated, a little bit different in courses. I would say that kind of like that's how I kind of glimpse from the book is kind of like seeing these students. I know that the book kind of takes it as a racial. I would say more with the drug addiction is teachers seeing these students as mess up, someone who doesn't care, seeing someone that they have no goals, they're not oriented, they're not wanting to succeed in life. And I would say, some teachers looked at me that way, and it's just how I personally felt in high school that I was treated when I went to a public high school, is that a lot of teachers just did not want to talk to me on the side when I had certain issues come up. They treated me as if, I didn't turn in my assignment. They wouldn't give me a chance, but they'd give other students a chance that actually was doing academically good. Mm-hmm. So it was like fairness was not equal at all. I was treated unfair, and I could see that with the same way as being in this class. For Rios's book being attached to my like connection towards it. So I believe this service learning connected well by most of the material we learned in our class. There was a lot of great things that I've kind of taken in. Specifically with the box example of equality, like I really like that a lot because, you look at the picture that with the man without the box, and he's not able to, like, he's not standing with the box, but because he gave his box to the other person. I feel like that's a good example just because a lot of students kind of passed on their notes, their material to me, and the way how it connects with sobriety is that at the school at Peace Academy, they treat everyone equally. It's not different. And if someone has to pass up their torch, as in like, let me give you the chance to speak because you probably need it the most, like the vent to clear up whatever's going on in your life to help you release. That is kind of how I looked at it as a good example of at Peace Academy, how it's kind of when you see equality there, it's literally you see students who see someone that's down or that's angry or that's upset. You could just tell by their body language, and they'll say like, we'll pass it along. Like, you might as well give the ball to that person. Did I make a difference? I'd say yes. Providing education and support for these students was very active. I'd say a lot of students learned. The math portion was extremely difficult for students in the beginning just because they weren't learning that much. Their math teacher, their substitute teacher, was actually a history teacher. So it was kind of like weird to see how he was trying to teach, but it wasn't working. So I kind of took like strategic ideas that when I took college algebra at Century, my teacher said, if you want to learn, the best way to learn is have a whiteboard at home, write out the equation and try to solve it yourself. And you can't do that. If I do an example and then try to writing that example up and then write your next problem up there.
Mhm.
So a lot of students really took that in. And for supportment of their drug addiction was another key thing. There was a lot of students who had emotional issues. You know, winter is a really, really tough time of the year for especially recovering drug addicts. The reason why is, you know, they're not able to go outside, do daily activities like go on walks, you know, stuff that, you know, I would recommend for stress relievers, walk, bike rides, go to the gym. With winter, you're kind of limited to all that. So, um, by support, you know, getting at least to talk about it, their feelings, I was there to kind of help and say, you know, this is kind of some things that you could do at home that could help you, um, because not everyone has access to, you know, everything like a gym or a car where they can be able to drive. And
Mhm.
so yeah. um and you know, by sharing my story as well, because you know, an addict to another addict, it's a learning process. It's, you know, I will never go through the same. You know, I won't say that I've never gone through the same things that they have gone through, because we all have a different story. But I would say, you know, we share this unique feature about both of each other, and we're able to share how, you know, we were at our lowest point in our lives where things really went downhill. Like, you know, I was getting in trouble. I was almost facing law issues. And a lot of those students, you know, they either have to face law issues or they've, you know, they've gotten clean themselves and they're wanting to fight for their recovery.
Mhm.
So sharing my story definitely helped. And with some people asking questions, trying to get like, you know, how did you handle this kind of situation when these feelings came up inside, you know, when you were presenting with this, was very helpful for the students, how to be able to react. And because I feel like, you know, with high school students, they react like that and it just snaps,
Mhm.
which is tough. Um, this is more of my facts. I don't know. I'm not gonna really read them,
Sure, that's
but
fine.
I just wanted to make sure that it was presented on my presentation.
Mhm.
You know, I just wanted to include some of them because they were very strong. I felt like about my service learning. So yeah, these are my facts that I wanted to include. I will send you my PowerPoint as well when I send you my recording,
That would be great. Yeah.
so that way you have everything as well.
Yeah.
Um, and so when I talk about encouraging students, was, you know, be motivated to support their social issue. For our students in our class in sociology, kind of be a leader, role model, um, volunteer for sure, which is a big thing. You know, a lot of people just, they say they want to help, but they don't do anything about it. So if you want to do something, why don't you give it a shot and just volunteer for a couple hours or so? Because um, you don't know how much impact you really make on someone else's life when you actually do that. And have the courage to address these issues. So, you know, when I talk about drug addiction and talking about students who are kind of looked at as failures, it's I want to help them so that they're not feeling that way. They can get the help and that they can do good in their education if they put their mind to it. So um, those are kind of my issues that I'm trying to address. But I feel like a lot of students had different, you know, options with food and with others with, you know, classes. And there was another one that was kind of big, but I forgot what that person selected in our class. That was really interesting to know what she was doing.
Yeah, I know. I wish we'd gotten to do all these presentations because they're so interesting. Yeah.
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 Yeah, they're definitely interesting. So I put my references on here as well, just include because I put quotes, and that's it.
Yeah, good. See, it's only me, but yeah, can you hear that? No, that was, you did a really nice job. And I am gonna ask you some questions and stuff, but
Okay.
I wanted to, well, maybe I should just do the questions first. Um, for Peace Academy, are the students aren't living there, right? They're living at home but going to school.
Yeah, they're not living there.
Okay.
They're at the, like, they go home and they take a city bus. Actually, it's in Dinkytown.
Okay.
The school is actually a part of a church,
Oh,
so
okay.
it's quite interesting to know that um, that the students come in. They come in roughly around 7 a.m., which
Okay.
is pretty interesting because waking up extremely early at like
Yeah.
5 or 6 or so, I had to do that, which was extremely hard. I would say it was definitely a learning process. You get to develop a little bit more knowledge with the city itself in Minneapolis.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, no, students would go home at like 2:50, and
Okay.
they take a city bus back home.
And then how long would you be in that high school? Is it just like for a year while you're getting sober and then you go back to your other high school, or could you end up being there
No,
until
you could graduate. You could
you
go
could do all 4 years?
freshman to senior. Yeah, you could
Okay.
do the whole thing there.
And how long were you there?
I was there. I was there my senior year,
Okay.
because I did my own recovery process. I never got faced with legal issues. It was coming to the point with my family that my parents were about to say, we're done. We're gonna, yeah, give you off to basically like an orphanage, or because I was 16 at the time, with my drug addiction getting really hard, really heavy, um, and I kind of didn't want that, so I put myself into treatment the first time and it didn't work. I ended up relapsing. And then my second time, I put myself into an inpatient treatment at Hazelden, which is in Plymouth.
Hmm.
And I was there for 33 days with
Okay.
without, no family, no house. Um, it was extremely weird.
I bet. I
It was
bet.
extremely weird.
But then you were successful that second
Yeah,
time.
after that, I got clean. Um, I would say that, when you really take yourself out of that picture, it helps. Because
Uh-huh.
the first treatment center that I put myself into, I was outpatient, and I was still going to my high school,
Uh,
and which just, it wasn't helping. There was too many uh, people I used to hang out with that was just not good, and that weren't about recovery. They wanted to keep using, and then they'd put pressure on me that wasn't the greatest. So
right. Right. Only other question I was going to ask you is, do you know what's happening at the school now? Like, I assume because of the virus, they're closed. And
I actually do know what's happening at the school. So they're doing Zoom. They have
okay,
to sign on specific times.
okay,
Um, with the counselor, the addiction counselor, I found out
hmm,
that if you want to talk to him, you have to email him, and he is on his email like really fast.
okay,
Um, so I've been in contact with him just to know like what's going on with him, because he is actually the addiction counselor that I used to talk to. He's the reason why I went to Peace Academy,
okay, uh-huh,
because he was actually my first. He was my first treatment counselor at the first treatment that I went to.
okay, hmm,
So I kind of was like, oh, he's at the school now. Like I want him again, because he treated me really well. He really liked me a lot, and I had a great experience. But with outpatient treatment, it only lasted so long. It didn't go
hmm,
on for a long
right.
time. So
Okay, so it's good that the students are still, even though they can't go to school, they're still, it sounds like they're able to get support and stuff.
yeah,
I know it's not the same online, but
it's
yeah.
it's not the same. And this honestly, this is like not uncomfortable for me, but this is like definitely a lot different for experience for me, because to be honest, I like presenting. Like I like presenting in front of people.
Uh-huh.
When I took my communications class at Century, I had so much fun with it. And I was like, oh, sweet, we're going to do a presentation. And then I found out it was group project. I was like, oh, man, that might be a little bit difficult, because I'm like, I got work. Like I'm not going to be the best communicator, but with my group members, it was easy. I mean, we chatted a little bit. We didn't really get far into it, but
Yeah, we
um,
were going to work on it after spring break. So
I was
yeah,
about to say we probably were about to get really
we
kind
were.
of heavily in of trying to get material set up and get everything put in.
Yeah, we just ran out of time.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is really great. Do you want to stop the recording
yeah.
and I'll stick around and talk to you? Just do you know how to do that?
I hope so.
Okay. I
Let's see.
on mine, it's up in the top left-hand corner. There's a thing where it says recording and then you can stop.
Recording.
Oh, you might have to stop sharing your screen though.
Okay, let me stop sharing. Okay, and then
Yeah, like up in the left-hand corner, upper left-hand corner.